There is perhaps no relationship more fundamental to our existence, more shrouded in layers of conditioning and illusion, than the one we have with our mother. From the moment we draw our first breath, we are enveloped in a complex web of love, expectation, protection, and projection that will shape every subsequent relationship we form, every belief we hold about ourselves, and every unconscious pattern that will either liberate or imprison us for the rest of our lives. Yet how many of us have the courage to truly see our mothers as they are, beyond the archetypal roles society has assigned them, beyond our desperate need for them to be something other than the flawed, complex, wounded human beings they actually are? This unwillingness to see clearly, this refusal to confront the truth about the person who first showed us what love looks like, becomes the invisible chain that binds us to patterns of suffering we cannot even name. The mother figure exists in our psyche as something far more powerful than a mere person. She becomes the template for how we relate to the feminine principle itself, to nurturing, to unconditional love, to safety, to belonging. When we refuse to see her clearly, when we keep her frozen in the amber of our childhood projections, we simultaneously freeze our own capacity for authentic relationship, for genuine intimacy, for the kind of love that sees and accepts reality, rather than demanding that reality conform to our fantasies of what it should be. The spiritual journey cannot truly begin until we are willing to descend into this most primal of relationships and excavate the truth that lies buried beneath decades of idealization, resentment, obligation, and unconscious repetition. Consider for a moment the caterpillar that must dissolve completely in the darkness of the chrysalis before it can emerge as a butterfly. There is no halfway transformation, no gentle evolution that preserves the caterpillar while birthing the butterfly. Something must die for something new to be born. In the same way, our relationship with our mother as we have known it, as we have needed it to be, must undergo a kind of death before we can meet her, and ourselves, in the realm of authentic truth. This death is not about blame or judgment or the severing of love. It is about the willingness to see clearly, to allow what is real to emerge from beneath the layers of what we have insisted must be real, in order for us to feel safe, worthy, and whole. The truth about your mother is likely far more complex and human than the version you have been carrying in your heart and mind. She is neither the perfect nurturing goddess you may have idealized her to be, nor the completely inadequate villain you may have made her into when that idealization inevitably crumbled. She is a woman who was once a little girl, who received her own incomplete mothering, who was shaped by her own fears, limitations, cultural programming, and unhealed wounds. She loved you to the extent she was capable of loving, which was simultaneously everything she had to give and yet perhaps not everything you needed to receive. This gap between what she could offer and what you needed is not anyone's fault. It is simply the human condition, the inevitable reality of imperfect beings trying to love each other across the chasm of their own unfinished healing. But here is where it becomes spiritually crucial to see clearly. As long as you continue to relate to your mother through the lens of a child's needs and expectations, you remain a child, regardless of your chronological age. As long as you are waiting for her to become the mother you needed, longing for her approval, rebelling against her limitations, or protecting yourself from her unconscious patterns, you are not free. You are caught in a dance of reaction that keeps you from inhabiting the full power and responsibility of your own adult consciousness. The spiritual path demands that we graduate from being children to being conscious adults who can see our parents as fellow human beings on their own journey of growth and healing. I want to pause for a moment and ask you directly, what would change in your life if you stopped waiting for your mother to understand you completely, to validate your choices unconditionally, or to heal the wounds that her own limitations created in your early years? What if you could love her without needing her to be different than she is, and simultaneously protect your own energy without building walls of resentment or emotional distance? I know this territory can feel incredibly vulnerable and complex. Many of us have spent years in therapy trying to untangle the web of our family dynamics, and yet we still find ourselves falling into the same patterns of expectation, disappointment, and reaction whenever we interact with our mothers. We oscillate between feeling guilty for not appreciating them enough and feeling angry that they cannot seem to see or celebrate who we have become. We love them and feel constrained by them. We want to be close to them and need to be free from their unconscious demands and projections. I want you to know that this internal conflict is not a sign that something is wrong with you. It is a sign that you are ready to evolve beyond the parent-child dynamic and step into a more mature form of love. It is evidence that your soul is calling you toward a deeper level of authenticity and freedom. And that is why I would like to invite you to share something of your experience in the comments below. You can simply copy this phrase and complete it. I realized I needed to see my mother differently when, by sharing this, you not only honor your own journey toward greater consciousness, but you also create space for someone else who might be struggling with the same complex feelings of love, loyalty, frustration, and the desire for freedom. Your comment could be the permission slip another person needs to begin their own process of seeing clearly, of loving, without losing themselves. This invisible community of people who are willing to look honestly at their most foundational relationships, who are brave enough to love without illusion, grows stronger every time we acknowledge our common humanity and our shared commitment to truth over comfort. Now let us continue exploring what becomes possible when we bring conscious awareness to the relationship that has shaped every other relationship in our life. The process of seeing your mother clearly is not about creating a list of her failures or finally getting the validation that yes, she did hurt you in ways that matter. It is about recognizing the difference between the mother you needed when you were a child and the mother who actually existed, and then making peace with that gap without making either of you wrong for it. This recognition allows something extraordinary to happen. You can finally stop trying to get something from her that she cannot give, and you can start appreciating what she was able to offer without the overlay of resentment for what was missing. When you truly see your mother as a human being rather than as a role, you begin to understand that her limitations were not personal rejections of you, but rather the natural boundaries of her own healing journey. Her inability to meet certain emotional needs was not a statement about your worthiness, but rather a reflection of what she had never received herself. Her unconscious patterns, the ways she may have criticized, controlled, or emotionally withdrawn, were not calculated attacks on your spirit, but rather the inevitable expression of her own unhealed wounds and unexamined conditioning. This perspective does not excuse harmful behavior or suggest that you should tolerate treatment that diminishes your well-being. Rather, it offers you the freedom to respond from a place of conscious choice rather than unconscious reaction. When you understand that your mother's limitations are about her, not about you, you can protect your energy and maintain appropriate boundaries without carrying the additional burden of taking her behavior personally. You can love her humanity while refusing to absorb her unconsciousness. The spiritual significance of this shift cannot be overstated. The way you relate to your mother becomes the template for how you relate to the feminine principle in all its forms, to receptivity, to intuition, to the earth, to your own body, to the nurturing aspects of existence itself. If you are in constant conflict with your mother, constantly trying to fix her, please her, or prove something to her, you will find yourself in the same exhausting dynamic with life itself. You will be forever seeking external validation, forever trying to control outcomes, forever feeling like you are not enough just as you are. But when you can see your mother clearly and love her without losing yourself in the process, you develop the capacity for what we might call mature love. This is love that sees clearly and chooses consciously. Love that does not need the other person to be different in order to flow freely. Love that can appreciate what is present without being consumed by grief for what is absent. This is the kind of love that can meet life on life's terms, that can find nourishment even in imperfect circumstances, that can remain open without being naive. There is also a profound paradox embedded in this work that many people find both unsettling and liberating. The more clearly you see your mother's limitations and humanness, the more you may actually come to appreciate her unique gifts and strengths. When you stop demanding that she be the perfect mother, you can begin to see the ways she was actually quite remarkable given her own circumstances and conditioning. When you stop trying to get her to understand you completely, you may notice the ways she has always loved you, even if that love was expressed in a language you did not initially understand. This paradox extends into your own sense of self-worth and capability. As long as you remain unconsciously entangled with your mother's approval or disapproval, you cannot fully know your own value. You cannot trust your own perceptions, your own choices, your own capacity to create the life you desire. But when you step back from that entanglement, when you stop making her opinion of you more important than your own experience of yourself, something powerful emerges. Your authentic self begins to flower. The loneliness that often accompanies this process of differentiation is real and should not be minimized. There is a particular kind of grief that comes with releasing the fantasy of the perfect mother, just as there is grief in recognizing that your mother is not going to become a different person simply because you have grown and changed. You may find yourself mourning not only what you did not receive, but also the loss of the hope that someday you would receive it. This grief is sacred and necessary. It clears the space for something much more real and sustainable to emerge. What emerges is your capacity to mother yourself, to provide for your own emotional needs, to create the safety and nurturing that perhaps was not consistently available in your early years. This self-mothering is not about becoming self-sufficient to the point of isolation, but rather about developing an internal foundation of care and appreciation that does not fluctuate based on external validation or rejection. When you can provide this for yourself, your relationships with others, including your mother, become expressions of choice rather than attempts to fill fundamental gaps in your psyche. The spiritual traditions speak of the necessity of honoring your parents while also being willing to leave father and mother in order to follow the call of your own soul. This leaving is not necessarily physical, though sometimes it may be. More often, it is a psychological and spiritual leaving, a willingness to stop organizing your life around their expectations, limitations, or unconscious needs. It is the courage to disappoint them if necessary, in order to remain true to yourself, while simultaneously holding them in love and gratitude for the gift of life and whatever love they were capable of providing. This balance between honoring and individuating, between loving and being free, is perhaps one of the most sophisticated challenges of adult spiritual development. It requires tremendous emotional intelligence, the ability to hold paradox, and the willingness to tolerate the discomfort of others when you refuse to remain small in order to make them comfortable. Many people spend their entire lives avoiding this challenge, remaining children in adult bodies, forever seeking the approval they did not receive, or rebelling against the limitations they could not escape. But for those who are willing to do this work, who are willing to see clearly and love consciously, there awaits a freedom that is almost unimaginable from within the constraints of the parent-child dynamic. This is the freedom to love without losing yourself, to receive love without becoming dependent, to give love without becoming depleted. This is the freedom to be authentically yourself in the presence of the person who first showed you what love could be, even if that early love was imperfect or incomplete. The truth about your mother is that she is both exactly who she needs to be for your spiritual development and simultaneously someone you may need to love from a conscious distance in order to preserve your own authenticity and well-being. She was the perfect mother for the lessons your soul came here to learn, even if she was not the perfect mother for your emotional needs as a child. This distinction allows you to feel genuine gratitude for her role in your development without bypassing the very real work of healing the wounds that occurred in that relationship. When you can hold this level of complexity, when you can appreciate the gift while acknowledging the wounds, when you can love the person while maintaining appropriate boundaries with their unconscious patterns, you step into a level of spiritual maturity that transforms not only your relationship with your mother, but your relationship with everyone and everything in your life. You become capable of seeing clearly without losing your capacity for love, of loving deeply without losing your commitment to truth. The ripple effects of this transformation extend far beyond your immediate family relationships. When you are no longer unconsciously seeking the mother you never had in your romantic partnerships, friendships, and professional relationships, you can show up as a whole person rather than as someone trying to complete themselves through another. When you are no longer protecting yourself from your mother's unconscious patterns by building walls around your heart, you can remain open to love while maintaining your boundaries through conscious choice rather than reactive defense. This is how individual healing becomes collective healing. As you free yourself from the unconscious patterns inherited through your maternal line, you also free future generations from having to carry those same patterns forward. Your willingness to see clearly, to love consciously, to break the chains of unconscious repetition becomes a gift not only to yourself and your mother, but to your children, your children's children, and the collective field of consciousness itself. The path forward is neither about cutting your mother out of your life, nor about sacrificing yourself on the altar of family loyalty. It is about finding that sacred middle ground where love and truth, honoring and individuating, appreciation and boundaries can coexist in dynamic balance. It is about loving your mother for exactly who she is, while refusing to limit yourself to who she needs you to be in order for her to feel comfortable or secure. Trust that this work, though challenging, is leading you toward the deepest kind of freedom available to human beings. The freedom to love without conditions, to be authentic without apology, and to honor both your roots and your wings simultaneously. Trust that your mother, at the level of her soul, wants you to be free more than she wants you to remain the child who needs her in the old ways. Trust that the love between you is vast enough to accommodate this evolution, even if the personality level of the relationship requires renegotiation. What emerges from this courageous work of seeing clearly and loving consciously is something far more beautiful and sustainable than what you release. What emerges is your authentic self, unencumbered by the need to be anyone other than who you truly are, capable of love that enhances rather than diminishes your being, free to create relationships based on choice rather than unconscious compulsion. If these reflections on the complex terrain of maternal relationships and spiritual freedom have touched something deep within you, know that you are not alone in this often misunderstood aspect of awakening. The journey toward conscious relationship with our parents, particularly our mothers, is one of the most profound and challenging paths of spiritual development, and yet it is rarely discussed with the depth and nuance it deserves. This work of seeing clearly while loving consciously, of honoring our origins while claiming our freedom, is precisely why we have created this sacred space for exploration and mutual support. Each conversation we share here is like a light in the wilderness for those who are navigating between the world of unconscious family dynamics and the realm of conscious, authentic relationship. By subscribing to this channel, you join a community of individuals who understand that true spiritual growth requires the willingness to examine even our most foundational relationships with courage and compassion. You become part of a network of seekers who are committed to breaking cycles of unconscious repetition while maintaining an open heart. We are not here to provide simplistic answers or to suggest that complex family dynamics can be resolved through positive thinking alone. We are here to explore together the sophisticated emotional and spiritual intelligence required to love without losing ourselves, to honor without sacrificing our authenticity, to transform patterns that may have been generations in the making. If you recognize yourself in these words, if you feel ready to step into a more conscious relationship with the maternal principle in your own life, this channel is your sanctuary and your compass. Subscribe and allow yourself to be supported by insights that honor both the complexity and the profound potential for healing that exists within our most challenging relationships. Together, we form an invisible network of individuals who are willing to do the deep work of transformation, who understand that personal healing and collective healing are inseparable, who are committed to creating new templates of relationship based on truth, respect, and genuine love rather than unconscious need and projection. A simple click on the subscription button is a quiet declaration of your commitment to growth, a silent acknowledgement that you are ready to love more consciously and live more freely. And in a world where so many remain trapped in the patterns they inherited, your conscious choice to grow becomes a beacon of possibility for others who are still finding their way toward the light of authentic relationship.